All right. Party people in the place to be, vandals, and all the brain eaters. Go ahead and get excited because Joe and I are here to talk about the 80s classic Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And I'm really excited. I, of course, am Henri Chestic, and I am from the great state of Montreal, just like my friend Joe. And um, really
It's
excited to
just
talk.
it's actually a city, and we live in a province called Quebec. But hey, whatever.
uh,
uh,
what I say.
he called us a state, and you called the city a state, and we're a province. And anyway, it doesn't matter.
Uh, but you excited to talk about this movie, Joe?
Yeah, yeah. I thought I'd seen it before, but I hadn't seen this one. So yeah, it was my first time watching it.
Cool.
Uh,
Last night I actually sat down and watched something really fun. I watched the first season of Shudder's Creep Show, which is a really good show. It actually
mhm.
is about as good as the first film. I mean, some of the stories weren't completely amazing, but I like that every episode is two stories, and I really, really had a ball with the first season, so I highly recommend that. Just kind of a quick little check-in before we get
Yeah,
into it. You watch anything kind of
I've
horror related?
last night. Nah, I just didn't do much. Didn't do much. But I've heard good things about Creepshow as well. I heard overall it's really good. There might be a few misses in it overall, but like one or two episodes that might not be up to par. But overall, it was a really good series. That's what I've been hearing around. So yeah, I'll have
Yeah,
to
there were
hit that.
There was one story that was a little boring about two ladies stuck in an elevator that it went on too long, but it was still pretty gory once it got to the good part. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, back to Return of the Living Dead. Joe, you got the information pulled up. You want to go ahead and break down who did what on this thing?
Yeah, so Return of the Living Dead Part 2 was released in 88. The runtime is an hour and a half, which is awesome. I love that. It's directed by Ken Wetterhorn, and he also wrote it. It stars James Curran, uh, Tom Matthews, both actors of which were in the original, the first one. They don't reprise their roles. They're playing two completely different new roles in this, but they were in the original. You have Michael Kenworthy, Suzanne Snyder, Jason Hogan, Thor Van Lingen, Marsha Deltling, and the list goes on. You have a few other actors I noticed. Mitch Pileggi, he was the one who played Skinner in X Files and Shocker in the Shocker movie. So yeah, you have that's pretty much the cast for
Which
that.
character was
Yeah,
he in the movie?
he's one of the military guys who's on the jeep with the big gun there.
Okay.
The yeah,
Okay. Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
The
yeah,
yeah, that's a
yeah,
funny scene too.
yeah, yeah. They're just going around shooting zombies all over. Then come to find out, the jeep comes burning around a corner with a bunch of zombies driving it. But we'll get to that later.
With some sweet hair metal just blaring too. Yeah, that's one
Yeah,
of like
yeah,
the hair metal montage scenes, which are
yeah.
really great in
Oh,
the film.
this movie has a lot of camp, and that was just one of many scenes that illustrates how campy it is. Yeah.
But opening this baby up, as far as I remember, this is one of the first ones I saw that was a zombie film in a total urban setting. This one kind of takes place in a housing tract that is getting built, and basically you start this off with a group of children. There's the main boy, I forget his name. I think it's Jesse, right? Um,
Jesse.
and
Yeah.
uh, and he is hanging out with Billy and I forget the third boy's name, and they're kind of bullies to him, but he's a little smartass anyway, so he kind of deserves maybe a little bullying in my opinion. But basically, like they are playing around in the cemetery and they find a drum, and the drum has a zombie in it, and it's straight from their first film, and
Yeah.
it releases gas. Meanwhile, you have the two guys from the original film as grave robbers. They are going and really hilariously stealing
Hmm.
jewelry out of out of coffins with some great one-liners between the two of them, with the really pretty but annoying redheaded girlfriend of the one younger guy. I don't know the actor's name, but he looks like Michael Dudikoff, is who he really reminded
Yeah,
me of American Ninja.
that's Tom Matthews, I think, right?
Yeah,
You mean the guy from the original movie,
I think so.
the
Yeah,
blonde dude? Yeah, he's from the original movie. Yeah, yeah, and I
yeah.
think his girlfriend, she's the one who's plays in Weird Science, I think, as well. His girlfriend.
You're right. She's the blonde girl in Weird Science.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but she's
exactly.
redheaded in this. Yeah.
In this,
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
exactly. Yeah, so yeah. Mm.
But yeah, basically, you get the really cool setup, man. You get to meet all the characters and kind of these kind of really fun scenarios. You got the Jesse's sister is like this kind of health nut. She's still in high school, and the TV repairman kid comes and. I don't know the actor's name. He reminds me of Bobby from Twin Peaks, but I don't think
It
it's
is
the
him.
same
It
actor.
is him.
It is Bobby.
It is
Okay,
Bobby from
so
Twin Peaks. Yes, it is him. Because he did this movie, then he went on to do Twin Peaks right after.
I was thinking it was him, but I was just like,
Yeah, it
that,
is him. It's
that's
totally him.
hilarious. So yeah, you got Bobby from Twin Peaks basically as the hero of this film, which was funny
Yeah.
as hell to me. And he was like a nerdy guy in high school, and he's trying to show off for this girl, um, by being this TV repairman. And basically, the little brother like sneaks out of the house to see if the two bully kids did anything more with the zombie. And that's basically when all hell breaks loose. You kind of want to hop in and do some more of the scenario there, Joe?
Yeah, just like in the first movie, like from the gas getting released, these two bully kids breathe it in, so they slowly start to turn into zombies from breathing in these toxins because it's a secret government weapon that for chemical warfare, I guess, or whatever. So they slowly start to turn into zombies, and like you say, that's when all hell breaks loose. Oh yeah, and there's that scene. It's kind of a callback to the first movie where he goes into the tunnel where they found the barrel, and then that zombie comes walking towards him, and it looks a lot like the zombie from the original movie. So there was that too, a little callback to the first one. And he just easily, he's slow and he just pushes him into the water anyway. Those effects, I like those practical effects like that, like with the bulging eyes and the slimy looking face and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. It looked good. Um, yeah. So then, like when he goes and he sees he's getting sick, and it kind of escalates from there pretty quick. Like there's no like the zombies just start showing up from everywhere because from the cemetery and everything, and the mother from the bully kid, like she doesn't know what's going on. The door's open, and then she runs out and sees zombies. So she runs back in. By then, her it's Billy, right? The main bully, the tall one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's already like while she's outside and sees the zombies, you see him convulsing in his bed. And when she comes back in, he's turned into a zombie, and she sees he's out of bed, so she's happy. So she goes and hugs him, and that's when his entry to the movie, where he's kind of like the main. They focus around him as a zombie a lot in this movie, and he just brains and eats his mom's brains, and then you see him join the rest of the horde of zombies outside, and in this one the zombies are a little more intelligent. Like they remember and they have like axes to grind, because Billy's always after the Jesse's the other kid, right? The little one that they
Yeah.
bullied. Like he's got a vendetta against him. He's like searching him out and like chasing him around and wants to get Jesse. So a lot of these zombies don't they keep their memories a lot longer. It's kind of weird. It's kind of a different take from the first one, because the first one they turn pretty mindless and all the like a singular goal is zombies, but this one they're more lucid and their decision
Yeah.
making. Yeah,
Well, and they
it's kind
speak
of
too. You have
yeah
the
they
one that's over
speak.
the
Yeah,
intercom. He's like, "Come to the hospital," and they're like, "Well, who's the
yeah.
president?" He's like, "Herbert Hoover" or whatever.
Yeah. So basically, they took the rule book to zombies and just threw it out and pretty much did whatever the fuck they wanted that they thought would just make for a good movie. And I listened to the commentaries, and he was trying to do like a comedy horror with this a little more than just a straight up horror. The director, that's what he said. So that's why I think it's a lot more campy than the first one. And so anyway, all these people get together, like most zombie movies. They form a little group to try to survive. trying to get out of the town, but the military surrounds that little development or town, so they're stuck there with all the zombies. And they're trying to develop a plan, and they realize the only way to kill them in this one is through electrical. You electrocute them through a shock. So they devise a plan to kill all the zombies by electrocuting them at the, is it the meat plant? They draw them to the meat plant, and they put wires in the water.
They get brains from the meat plant, and then they lure them to the power plant.
To the power plant, yeah, where they put wires in the water with brains all over, so they'll go and start eating and try to electroshock them. And that pretty much, then obviously the plan kind of falls apart. The zombies are after them, and it looks like they won't get out. And then by some miracle, everything works out. They electrocute all the zombies. Jesse overcomes Billy the Bully zombie, and stuff like that. And turns out at the end, though, I can't remember. Is there like some kind of like an open-ended ending where maybe zombies are going to come back? I don't remember now.
No, it ends pretty standard. It ends with the army rolling in and finishing off the ones that are left, and there's the
with the
talking
flamethrowers
in there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty much the story. But then we got to get into the campiness that's integrated into this story, like where they go grave robbing, like right from the start. Like he's just chopping the head off with an axe, and for some reason, I don't know why, he's collecting corpses' heads for something. Someone hired him to go collect. So as he goes and collects these heads, he just steals whatever jewelry. And then there's the first really bad joke is where he's in there and he throws the head in. Now you know why they call it a bag man. And then it just goes downhill from there for the campiness and the cheese. It's just horrible after that.
My favorite part is the whole, like, people, they'll only pay for an interned head. They will not buy a head that wasn't already buried. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, dude?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know where they came up with this stuff, but it's off the wall. And like you said, the head, the girl starts talking, and that's pretty funny. I thought that was pretty good. She's just...
Get the screwdriver out of my goddamn head.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. That's pretty funny. The zombie head that they just carry around that keeps talking and delivering all these crazy one-liners. There's actually they poke fun at Thriller. They have a Michael Jackson zombie in there that makes this little appearance. So they poke a little fun at the Michael Jackson Thriller video with the Michael Jackson zombie. The practical effects were pretty solid in this, I'd have to say. It's a little cheesy at times, but I mean, an 80s movie, they had a limited budget, but they did a pretty good job with the budget, like where she's running away from her boyfriend, the redhead, I can't remember her name, but the one who was in Weird Science, and he's chasing her, and then she sees a zombie, and she grabs it and rips his bottom jaw off. And with the tongue, it's cheesy, but it's still well done. It's funny. I laughed at that. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, and there was a lot of really good physical comedy gore in it. Like when they put the tire iron into the one's head and it pulls it back out and it's making the... Like, that was even really funny. But it was pretty gross, too.
It's gross, but it's really campy. Like, I didn't expect it to be as campy as it was. Because the first one was a little bit campy, but it was still trying to be quite serious as well. But this one, I think they just, like the director said, he was going straight up for a horror comedy, and it succeeds. It does a pretty good job at that. And in the commentaries, he was saying how at the time, genres didn't mix as much. They didn't cross over. Like he was explaining back in the 80s, like people who love the horror genre didn't want to go to the movies to see a comedy, and vice versa. People that went to see comedies didn't want to see horror. So back then, to do a horror comedy wasn't a very popular or sought out thing. Like compared to today, you have like Shaun of the Dead, Dale and Tucker, Fight Evil. You have all these great horror comedies like what is it, Little Monster. I mean, you have a bunch of great horror comedies that have a huge following. And I think this movie might have been one of the ones that helped pave the way for those other movies to have success. And it was pretty good at it. I mean, all things considered. like with a
Oh,
limited budget, the actors. I mean, it did a
it
decent
nailed
job.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would put this up with Dead Alive or Brain Dead, as some people would know it, and
Mhm.
which is funny because I think that they came out at about the same time. I wouldn't say either one ripped each other off, but but if you were going to compare this to another film, that's the closest thing I could say that this is to is
Mhm.
Peter Jackson's Dead
Yeah.
Alive.
Which is another great movie. Like, I love that movie. That's such a good movie. Like, anyone who hasn't seen it should go see that movie. It's got some, oh, so many great scenes. But we'll save that for another time.
But in the commentary, did the director say anything about the allegory of this film? Because the way that a lot of the zombies looked with like the mullets and the business suits and stuff, it almost made me think that he was making fun of yuppie culture in a way, but not really in a
Uh,
coherent way like, Romero would with his movies.
no, he didn't really specify anything about that. Just no, it was it was originally the director said he had wrote this movie and it wasn't even supposed to be a sequel to Return of the Living Dead, but he had hooked up with the producers that had the rights to Return of the Living Dead and they agreed to fund his movie or produce it as long as he put the title Return of the Living Dead 2 because they wanted a sequel to the original movie. So he probably changed a few small things to fit the story of the first movie, like the drums and everything, which I think he might have already had in there. So it was a perfect fit. So it wasn't even written to be a sequel, and it just ended up that they used his script anyway to do a sequel for it. So that was part of the deal. He had to slap that title on it, and he was like, "Whatever, man. If I can get my movie made, I'll call it whatever the hell you want." So that's what he did.
Well, speaking of it being a sequel, having reoccurring actors, and it being campy as hell, this movie has probably one of my favorite fourth wall breaks, and that is when the two grave robbers are becoming zombies and they're in the car, and
Yes.
they sit there and this is like deja vu. It's like we've been here before, me and you and them, and oh, dude, like, could
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
That was
It's freaking
that you did
hilarious.
they didn't do shit like that in horror back then, so like just
No.
even breaking the wall like that was just epically classic. And
Yeah, yeah, that was a good scene. When I saw it, I was like, "Oh man, they did do it." I got a good laugh from that. And then that after that was that before it follow after that it's the hand scene, right? That follows right after that
yeah,
or right before. Anyway, it's when they're in the car driving away. Then that hand scene where the hands just attacking them and stuff, and they're throwing it around, and the zombie hands trying to get them, and they throw it out, and then the classic middle finger scene with the zombie flipping them the bird as they keep driving off. Like this is the type of campiness that's in it. So you can't go in expecting a serious horror movie because it absolutely is not that. It has some serious parts, but overall it's extremely campy and you got to expect to go in there with a lighthearted zombie story in it.
well, yeah, because like we said, the key focus of the film is basically between Jesse and Billy, his bully, because like the big climax, the big death at the end is Jesse taking out Billy with the transformer, which like it's
Mhm.
brutal. I mean, I can't believe they did a kid's death even in a horror film like that.
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
just like, and when it happens, you're just like, yeah. Well, but even before that, he sticks a screwdriver in his mouth and throws the little bastard
Throws him
off
over the
of
railing, yeah, and he comes back, yeah. Like he's like, ha ha ha, I got it out, I'm back. Yeah, it's pretty campy. And in the commentaries, the director said he had a hard time shooting with kids because it's a zombie movie, right? So most like three-quarters of that movie was shot at night. And because they're children, there's like labor laws that you can't have children work past certain hours of the day and this and that. So it became a huge challenge to shoot a lot of the zombie scenes with the kids because it happens at night. So that was a huge obstacle he had to try to work around. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what he was going through. And like there was a lot of little like where the Transformers are, that final scene. They had a whole set made up, and I guess one of the stuntmen or one of the workers fell through the ceiling and broke everything. So they had to rebuild the whole ceiling of that set from scratch the day before they were going to shoot. So like there was a bunch of little hiccups in that movie, kind of similar to that. That when you have a small budget, like you said, it kind of put a wrench in a lot of the stuff, and they had to get a little resourceful and creative sometimes because of stuff like that. But in all, like the director said, they had a limited budget, so when he was talking to the makeup guys, they didn't try to go beyond the capabilities of what their budget permitted. They tried to work within it. So I think that's why a lot of the practical effects work well, because they knew their limits and really worked within them. So that's why a lot of those practical effects turned out so great.
Well, they did a great job. I mean, even on a limited budget, because at the time, at least in American zombie horror, you mostly had the George A. Romero type zombies, and this one, like they had parts where like they'd get their faces burnt off, and there would be full skeletals,
Hmm.
skeletal faces that are still talking and stuff. So that a lot of animatronics, a lot of
Yeah.
what you would think would be expensive gags at the time, and they all looked pretty good. I mean, sure, you could see the silicone from the makeup and stuff every now and then, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's unescapable at the time. You know what I mean? That's
Hmm.
just how it looked pre CGI. So if you're a fan of old horror, it's not going to be something that bothers you. But
Hmm. Yeah, because they
even on a,
can't really go in and touch it up like you said digitally, just to get rid of like maybe those little things that maybe show up, or yeah,
yeah.
like the scene, like on they when they got to the scene with the hand in the car, that was pretty cool how they did it. Basically, what it is someone in the back seat has the hand, and where it's cut, it comes out, and then he's wearing a black suit, so it's an actual person that he's fighting with the hand, where he's down below him and fighting, but he's wearing a black suit, so you don't notice it. So they make sure he's wearing dark clothes, so you can't notice the arm against the other guy's black dark clothing. Yeah, and it was pretty
Okay.
good. So then once I knew that, I started looking closer, then I could see it. But I was like, oh man, before I knew it, I hadn't even noticed. So it was really well done. And then when they're throwing the hand around, that's
Yeah.
obviously
Oh,
just a rubber hand they're throwing around. But they kind of mixed the two. And that's what I was saying. They did a really good job with the limited budget they had. And it turned out pretty good, because that scene was really well done. And if I hadn't listened to the commentary after, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. I probably wouldn't have looked as closely to try to see the guy's arm with the black suit on and stuff. And yeah, so it was really well done.
yeah, I'll have to rewatch it to see if I can spot it because I wasn't really looking to catch gags, but
No, me either. And then I watched it once without the commentary, then I watched it once with the commentary. And yeah, so then as he's talking, he's like, "Oh, if you pay attention, you can see there's a." So then I started looking, and I spotted it. Yeah, so mm.
But yeah, once they tossed the hand out the window, which I love the scene where like, because they nailed it. The actors, it was probably one of the best things that some of the lesser actors in the film pulled off when they're throwing the hand back and forth across the seat, and each one of them like freaks out with it. I thought that was classic until it gets thrown out the window, and then yeah, it just rolls over and flips them off, and it's probably one of the most iconic horror sequences I remember from my childhood. Like this
Yeah.
movie, I remember it being on TV all the time. I remember watching this so many times as a little kid, and
And did they cut that scene out where it gives a finger, or did they leave it in on television?
oh, I don't know. I never really watched it when it was on TV. What I meant is like it was
Yeah,
always like on HBO or
yeah, yeah.
Cinemax or Showtime. You know what I mean? Constantly.
Because like you say, that's like one of the scenes that everyone will remember from this movie, right? Because it's a severed zombie hand giving them the finger, so everyone's going to remember that scene. So I was wondering if they kept it in when it played on network, or if they cut that out completely when it hit network television. I don't know.
It would get cut out on American
You think
TV,
so?
especially in
Yeah,
the 80s and 90s. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Uh, that's too
Maybe if
bad
they showed
because.
on cable, maybe if they showed it like on Comedy
Mhm.
Central or something, they keep it in nowadays. But yeah, I think even now, if they showed it like on Fox Movie of the Night, type of thing, it would get cut, which is a
Mhm.
damn shame because, I mean, it's just a finger. I mean, it's the California Howdy, you know what I mean? If you ever watched that Beverly Hillbillies movie, but. Another thing that really helped this movie with me was because I watched this when I was young. Like it came out when I was 7, I believe,
Mhm.
and it was one of the first times that I watched a horror movie when I realized that half of these things are funny. Like horror movies are actually as funny as they are scary, and
Yeah.
this one is more so than any of the rest from my childhood. But
Mhm.
it was a learning experience, and it's one of the things that helped me get into horror to make me realize that it's actually a really fun genre of film, not just something that's there to terrify you. Well, depending on what
Mhm.
you watch, but
Yeah. Yeah. See, like I had seen the first one, the original, and I'd never seen this, so it was the first time I watched it. So when I was watching it, I didn't know. Like I was like, in the beginning, I was watching. I don't remember seeing one with little kids and stuff. So then I realized, oh, I had never seen this one because I used to watch. I seen a lot of horror movies because I had an older sister, right? So she was 6 years older than me, so she was a teenager when I was like 10, and she'd rent all kinds of horror movies. So at 10 years old, I got to see all these horror movies, and a lot of them I haven't rewatched since I was a little kid. And I thought I'd seen this one, but I hadn't. So it was fun to watch it for the first time, and really yeah. And so yeah, so I have that added to my list of old school horror movies that I got to watch.
oh man, how funny was the scene where the zombies attack Billy inside the house and our Billy from at Twin Peaks in the house, and he accidentally turns on the aerobics tape, and they all just stop and start watching the girl bounce around doing aerobics, and he just gets up and leaves. Oh man, like I thought I remembered like a lot of the jokes in the movie, but seeing him
Yeah,
again, I laughed so hard rewatching that movie this week.
yeah,
Like even when I did my rewatch again tonight, like that part just like really cracks me up every time because especially that one that's on top of him because like he looks like Bill Murray anyways, and he's just like all, "Hey man, she's kind of hot."
yeah.
Like the zombie's face is classic,
Was
dude.
was was that the same one that ends up at the hospital?
I think so,
No.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because there's one zombie that had kind of a reoccurring, like one of the less like not anyway. You kept seeing him around here and there, and they had a and the director said there was a couple actors they used because they were pretty good to. They put them in lot of the different scenes, so you see a couple of the zombies are reoccurring in a lot of the scenes. And then getting back to we were saying earlier, the Skinner scene where the military comes in and they're just shooting them, and that's when they go into the meat plant to get the beef brains to feed the zombies, and they put the little kid on the lookout. And then he hears stuff, so he goes running, and that's when he sees the army van coming. And like you said, they had that what was it that the hair metal or whatever. Anyway, blaring, and all you see are silhouettes, and it looks like a clown car coming down the road. And all of a sudden, when you can see, it's just a bunch of zombies driving this military car, which is another just super campy element to this movie, where like zombies are like they're not your typical like zombies that are dumb, slow, or single minded. Like they're driving around and like hooting and hollering and having a good time in this jeep, this military jeep, and it was just funny.
There's
It
like
was just funny
10 or
seeing them
12
coming
of them.
down. Yeah,
There's like 10 or 12 of them up on it too. I mean, that Jeep was full.
it was full. That was probably a dangerous scene for those actors to or stuntmen to shoot because man,
It
one
was
of them
going
could have
fast
easily
too.
yeah, one of
Yeah.
them could have easily fallen out and gotten ran over or yeah. So yeah. So they're driving around, zombies driving a military jeep, driving around town, just having a ball, looking for brains. Night out, guys on a night out on the town looking for brains. Yeah, that
and
was a good
um
scene.
and it's a trope of zombie stuff, but like this is the only movie that I've ever seen where the zombies actually walk around saying brains. Um,
Did
but
they say
even
it in the first one?
no, they liked brains, but I don't think that they actually talked in
They
the
didn't.
first one. I
No,
think
I
that
think they did say brains in the first one. I'll have to rewatch it now. I watched it like about a month ago, so I can't remember, but I thought they said it. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe this was the first time that they go around just talking about brains all the time. Yeah.
but yeah, another like you said, they completely retcon zombie lore and like yeah, these ones are basically invulnerable unless you electrocute them,
Hmm.
which it was a weird way to take it. But the first scene where like the one gets thrown into the marquee and then gets electrocuted by the
Yeah.
van, and then
Mm.
I guess he really liked the idea of the Michael Jackson zombie because that's the only thing that I could think of is why he pushed so hard for electrocution to be the only way to kill him. And why not? Aside from the middle finger coming up, like the Michael Jackson zombies probably the second most iconic thing people remember from this
Yeah.
particular film. 'Cause it is so out of nowhere. You're just watching it, and the zombies are dying, and then he just steps into frame and like does the Thriller dance, and then falls over, and you're just like, did that just happen? Did they really
Yeah,
put
it's funny because this afternoon I was watching it uh, and I looked at Pat. I was like, man, I'm gonna have to go check to see if it's the same makeup artist or the same director that directed the Thriller video. Because I said a lot of the zombies and the makeup looked a lot like the zombies or whatever creatures of the night from Thriller. And then, sure enough, like a half an hour later, you get that scene of Michael Jackson. So I was like, fuck, maybe it is the same makeup guy or the same director. Then I went and checked, and it isn't. But man, I was convinced that it was after that Michael Jackson scene. I was like, dude, he did Thriller, then he landed this movie from that because Thriller's a pretty solid produced video, man. It has some high production value, like the makeup, the monsters in that. When he's a werewolf too, man, it's really well done, especially for something that was done in the 80s. Like it still holds up today.
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean,
Mm.
I don't want too many pop stars clothings, but that red leather jacket is something that I've always wanted. Like if I could like ever afford one, I would totally rock the Thriller red leather jacket, man.
Yeah.
That's pimp
Uh,
sauce right there.
for sure. It's iconic, big time.
Them shoulder pads. And the was there any characters you thought that were a little too over the top? I thought the doctor. I think that a lot of his
the
delivery could have
the
been a little better. He kind
the
of bugged me a
alcoholic
little bit.
doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, where he's like trying to like the guy and he's just slapping him in the face with the wooden stick instead of. And he's yeah, he wasn't the best actor in the world, but I mean, it's pretty campy, so you got to expect some bad acting in there, or really bad over the top acting, which is usually the case in a lot of these low budget movies. But I think everyone else did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean the little kids acted circles around him pretty much, which
yeah, he
is
was pretty solid. He wasn't annoying, or he was a pretty solid little actor. That kid. Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, and James Caron or James Karen, he delivers like he does in the original. He's funny. His physical acting is great. I mean, he carried a good part of that film for the early going with the. Yeah, he's good. All the scenes with him are usually pretty good and entertaining.
What did I say? No more prayers. Oh, it's not that. I just don't feel good all of a sudden. And I thought that was hilarious. Well, I said stop praying. That shit was
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but yeah, dude, this movie is too much fun. It's definitely a must-watch for the Halloween season, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And yeah, for zombie films that go above and beyond, I think that this is one of them, even though it is so silly. You know what I mean? It's still
Oh,
just probably one of the most iconic zombie films you can watch.
I'm wondering what rating it got because did they give the ratings here? 13 plus. So that's PG-13. This got a PG-13, which I think is fair. There's no nudity. There isn't too much violence, like aside from them killing a few zombies. But a lot of the zombies are killed through being electrocuted. So you don't see too many gory death scenes where they're just completely bashing heads in. And so I'd say, man, if you want to, you know,
Yeah, I'd say
a
probably the
Halloween movie for
goriest
your
one.
kids, I think this would be a safe bet if you want like a campy, kind of funny, slightly gory, like I mean it borders on Goosebumps, right? And that kind of stuff. I mean it may be a little step above that, but I mean it's
Yeah,
there.
because
It's got a little swearing, but aside from that, I mean nothing else is really all that offensive in it.
yeah, because even the most violent like gun death scene is hilarious when she comes in with a shotgun and blows that dude in half, and the zombie's trying to. Its legs are walking one way, and he's like reaching for it, and then he hops up
Yes.
on his hands and starts like that.
Yeah.
That's still hilarious. So like, yeah, even like the kind of gory gun violent part was
Hmm.
hysterical. You know what I
And that
mean?
was
So
really well done.
yeah,
Where he's
uh,
walking on his hands and stuff and going after the kid. That was really well done. I like that scene too. That was a great scene. Mm.
so yeah, I think that you're right. I think this would be a solid thing that you could watch with I don't know, not too young, but I'd say like an 8-year-old and up. Like this would be a solid
Yeah,
little
it's like
horror film
10.
you could
If
watch.
you had a 10-year-old, I'd say it's. I mean, unless you got to know your kids though. If you think you're gonna have them watch this and you're not gonna sleep for a week because they're gonna be up screaming for a week straight, then you got to know your own kids. But I mean, there's nothing over the top or offensive or overly like too violent or grotesque in it. So I'd say, like you say, it's a safe bet for 10 and up for sure.
So yeah, it's not just like a good Halloween watch, it's like a family Halloween watch in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
So solid two horns high from me. I cannot praise this film enough. Like I said though, I've loved it since I was a child, and I'm not gonna lie. When I was a kid, I was one of them kids that would watch horror films and not sleep for weeks. And this was one of the ones that kind of helped to break that cycle for me because it was just so fun and. I guess goofy is the right word, but at the same
Mhm.
time, it's a good horror film. It's like Evil Dead or like a
Yeah.
or Dead Alive, one of those. But I guess nowhere near as grotesque as Dead Alive, but it's still
See,
on that same level with it.
as a kid, a young kid, I think the first funny horror movie I ever saw was probably House. That was probably one of the first like horror comedies that I've ever seen. Was probably the first two House movies. I thought those were pretty. Like as a kid, I was like, "Oh, it's horror," and I was getting ready to be like, like, "Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to sleep tonight." And I watched those, and I was like, "Man, it was had horror elements, but nothing that made me not like too intense or so I'd say this falls into like a similar category to that where it's light horror. Mm.
Yeah, maybe maybe the Waxworks movies could fall in with those too. Like I think that those are a lot of fun, a lot of kind of goofy, kind of. Those ones are a little more sexual though, I would say. So like I wouldn't say that there's as approachable as this film is would be with like say watching with the family, but the house films definitely, especially the second one. I mean, it's about
Mhm.
skeleton cowboys, so
Yeah,
but
it's definitely campy and funny, and yeah, that's another safe bet, I think. But this one as well, man. I think it's definitely a good general, you know, movie that anyone can enjoy, especially if you enjoy 80s campy 80s horror movies, man. This one will fit the bill big time.
amen to that. And with that, I'd say we pretty much covered all the bases with this one. You ready to wrap this baby up, Joe?
Let's put a bow on it.
All right, you got any rating you want to throw on it? You got
Well,
any?
I don't have the same. See, I can't rate like if I would have watched this in the 80s, I think I probably would have given it a higher rating today because I'd have, like you say, the nostalgia factor, like the first one. But I think, today I'm going in for the first time and it was good. So I'd probably give it like maybe a 7 on 10, which is fairly solid.
Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. That's what I'd give it. Maybe
Mm-hmm,
7.5
mm-hmm,
because of the nostalgia, kick it up a little bit. But yeah, I'd
mm-hmm.
say that that's proper. And yeah, dude, Return of the Living Dead Part Two. If you've never seen this before, we can't say enough nice things about it. We can't recommend it highly enough, and definitely check it out. It's a really really solid Halloween watch. But yeah, I'm not sure what we're going to be doing our next bites on, but we're going to be keeping it horror until because we got a late start on it because of our interviews. But
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna probably be doing a horror into November, maybe the first couple weeks in November. So expect a couple more of these episodes out of us, and we'll let you know what they'll be on Twitter. But do you have any ideas? You want to do House Two maybe next because that's such a good fun movie.
Sure, we could do that, man. I'm open to anything.
Hell yeah. Or we'll do both the houses. I don't care. I love the first two.
And let's not forget tomorrow, same
Yo,
time, 6 p.m. We have Adrian on talking about Trakovi. We'll be talking about his Kickstarter. It has as of tomorrow. It'll have 48 hours left. So we'll be talking to him, and so if you're interested, I posted some stuff on Twitter. Go check it out and come check out the interview with him. It should be a lot of fun. So tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
right, right. But until next time, this is Buzz Bites, a product of Pink Buzz. That means don't stop reading, don't stop watching awesome horror films in October, and don't stop listening to that awesome music. Check you later, peoples.